Please state and spell your first and last name, just to begin.
Bradley E. Sturgeon, Bradley. E is in Eugene. Sturgeon, Sturgeon.
When did you first meet Doc, and where were you when you first met Doc?
I first met Doc when I came to visit campus on an interview. He was the one who picked me up at the airport up in Moline. I remember him waiting for me as I was getting off the plane. We had a nice hour-plus drive back from the Quad Cities, and that was our first meeting, a nice opportunity to talk to him for an hour about things going on here at the college.
Okay. What was your first impression of Doc?
He had kind of a fatherly kind of appearance to him. He was kind of always looking out for you. He seemed to be concerned to make sure that everything was okay, that you were comfortable, and other, sort of something your dad might do for you. Make sure that everything's going okay is number one priority.
And did this first impression hold true throughout the time you knew Doc?
Yeah, I think it was pretty consistent. It became less apparent, but I think Doc was always in the background, if not just thinking about the individual, but thinking about the group. And so I think he was very concerned about the department and about the college and these sorts of things. So it was, it just sort of took on a different form as you got to know him more and more. But yeah, generally he had that fatherly kind of persona to him.
Can you kind of expand on the fatherly persona? Like, was he just like that to, the colleagues? Was he like that to students?
Well, I guess one of the things I remember, I stayed at the Manor when I first came for my interview, and it was actually one of these very cold days, and I just had a sport coat. I didn't actually bring a heavy jacket because it really wasn't that cold out. It wasn't true winter just yet, and I was not necessarily prepared for the very cold weather. And so without him ever saying or asking or whatever, when he came to pick me up to go to dinner that evening, he brought a big red coat with him. So again, he's just trying to sort of look out. Now, yeah, I think he did that to everybody, but he really did treat everybody a little bit differently. He was very kind of, he would give you what you needed, right? And so I think, like with students, he could hug students left and right, and it was because that's sort of what they needed and what they wanted. And again, in that fatherly kind of figure, if I tried to hug a student, it might be kind of weird, but he had this way of having such a close, caring relationship with everybody that it was pretty common for him to just kind of hug on you. I don't know if I ever hugged him though. I don't know if I ever got to that point. Maybe I didn't need a hug, and I think that's kind of the thing, is that he gave you essentially what you needed. And if I never looked like I needed a hug, then I probably never got one.
What was Doc like as a professor? Did you ever have the opportunity to, watch him interact with students in the classroom and outside of the classroom?
When I got here, Doc had essentially shifted over to being what would be a lab manager. And so, again, he was about the most highly qualified lab manager you could ever have. But essentially, he knew where everything was. He would spend a lot of time in the lab when, because he would set up the labs and then he would kind of hang out and make sure everything was going well. So I never saw him lecture per se, but I think I can see his style of lecturing was very detail oriented, continually looking at the students to make sure they were understanding what he was saying and pausing. As a faculty member, you have to make a choice about how slow you go, because if people aren't getting it, you could always slow down, but then you compromise the amount of material you're covering in the class. And so if you do kind of try to cater to every student in the class, you tend to not cover as much material. And I don't think he was ever bothered by the fact that maybe he didn't get to something. A lot of faculty will have an agenda. Today I've got 4 pages of notes, kind of like me, right? But actually I think I probably have picked up a little bit of his style in that I don't really care if I get through my notes. And he didn't either. He was more responding to what was going on in the classroom environment. So.
Did Doc ever talk about, what kind of interested him in coming to Monmouth College and what interested him in just chemistry in general? I don't know if he ever talked about that or not.
Well, I think you find out that his family, his father, Lester Kieft, was a chemistry professor, and that Doc had always been around chemistry. I think there's some good historical pictures of him mimicking